When it comes to the business of government and regulation, what's good for regulatory stewardship and capability are the right conversations between regulators and others, not just about the decisions they make, but about their own decision-making environment. Kia ora and welcome to the programme. In the business of government and regulation in New Zealand, about 14,000 people, maybe more, are potentially giving decisions in pretty much every area that the state has an involvement with. Decisions that affect millions of people and businesses. Now, of course, getting the decision right is critical, but so too are the conditions under which the decision maker is empowered to act. The decision-making culture. In this episode, we ask a chief executive, a decision maker, and a coach, as well as other colleagues, for 7 talking points, or indeed suggestions, as to what a good decision-making culture at work looks like, and how it assists quality decision-making.
The business of being a regulator is inherently a people business. It's about people bringing themselves to work, thinking about what they're doing, using the best possible information they've got available, making good decisions, and they will inevitably be formed by life experiences, professional, other experiences, and really understanding the whole purpose of what we're trying to do.
Decision makers make tough decisions all the time that impact on people's lives and where they have to trade off a range of different factors, which are not black and white. It's really important that a decision maker is making a decision in a well-supported environment where they're able to be honest and transparent with the people they report to and the people who provide them with information on how they are feeling about the decision and what factors they are trading off. Because in that way, they'll have the support of the people they report to, and the people who they work with can give them the right information for them to make the right tough decision.
One of the main things that helps people do their jobs at their best is when they know why they're there, who they're there with, and how they can get the support that they need. And it all really comes down to feeling like they can be at their best at work, feeling like they're in a culture that supports them, feeling like they're in a part of a team where they all know how they contribute and how they support one another. And it all really comes down to, feeling mentally safe in a workplace, accepting all the different strengths that a team can bring, and being able to be challenged in the right way in terms of helping correct one another along the way. How do we work through really tricky things?
In 2014, in a key report on regulatory practice, the Productivity Commission looked at how important it was for regulatory agencies to have the right cultural settings when it came to decision making. Those settings are very important across all levels of the organisation.
Culture in regulatory organisations is very much set by the leaders in the organisation, and it's really critical that you have a culture that reflects the purpose of the organisation. And a regulatory purpose is inherently a challenging one. So the culture and the values that support the way people behave in the organisation needs to be established, reinforced and lived every day.
For leaders, it's so important to role model the kind of behaviour they expect to see, but also role model the fact that we're all human beings working in incredibly tough regulatory environments and modelling the ways in which we can best navigate through those environments. So some of that's role modelling certainty and stability and how we manage risk. And also some of it's role modelling vulnerability. How do we as organisations, agencies get through some of the tough stuff together, when the media gets noisy? What are some of the behaviours that are rewarded? What are some of the behaviours that are punished? A lot of people will look at regulatory systems in New Zealand, and you hear a lot in media, but the role modelling becomes so important in terms of an organisation and its culture within, not just from the top as well, but from each and every one of us.
So a positive culture, in my view, is really important for good decision making to happen, and good decisions can only be made where leaders are actually leading and ensuring that there is a good positive culture within the workplace for the regulator. An example of good cultural settings is one where people have each other's back, there's good and clear information flows, and people actually do want to do the right thing. And none of this matters if leaders are not setting a good example and role modeling that behavior, because culture really starts from the top. And from my experience, people are always watching what leaders do.
There's many definitions of leadership, and I like the one that says that leadership is influence, and I also like the converse, that influence is leadership. So whether you're leading and you've got the job title of leader, manager, chief in your title or not, you're still making an impact. You're making a decision that either impacts 1 or 1,000 or 100,000 people, and so that makes you a leader. So these decisions we make, they impact whether you be a customer service person on the phone, helping a customer, the answers that you provide, the advice you're given, it makes a difference to people's lives. You're making an impact. You're providing help to a colleague or a friend, teammate, you're making an impact. Those decisions matter. You might be making huge policy decisions, or in the time of crisis, making some massive, massive decisions that impact many, many people, making an impact. But it doesn't mean that if you don't have that word leader or manager or chief in your title, that you're not making an impact. And I feel very strongly about the fact that decisions made, particularly in the public sector, come from a place of real strong grounding, and that grounding is based on values. And we come from a very diverse set of backgrounds and makeups and skills and experiences, etc. But what grounds us as a public sector, or as public servants really, is our real deep care for each other and for New Zealanders. And that sense of manakitanga is that shared value that we bring, and that makes our decision making quite consistent and valuable.
Decision making can be tough. You've got the courts, the public, your manager, and pretty much everybody else, as it were, potentially looking over your shoulder. Add to the mix a Productivity Commission, who observe that when it comes to delegating decisions, different agencies may do it differently. Broader delegation means shifting decision-making closer to the front line. Reserve delegation means devolving less. There's not necessarily a right or wrong answer to this. It's up to the agency. But what's critical is that the decision maker feels supported in their decision making, and also supported by the appropriate level of training.
If you are delegated wider powers within a regulatory context, then I think it's really important to think about how you can be well equipped to be successful in exercising those powers. So the first thing I would think about is ensuring that you are provided adequate training and support to understand the legislative and regulatory context upon which you are operating. That is really, really important. Secondly, I think you need to become familiar with the practical aspects of what you are delegated to do. Talk to your manager, talk to the people around you to understand how this works in a practical context. And thirdly, do not be afraid to ask questions. And I'm hoping that your work environment allows you to ask those questions, because it's through asking questions that you can actually make sure that you're well equipped to undertake the powers that you're delegated to perform.
Every single individual working in a regulatory system, whether it's on the front line, in enforcement, in leading a system, in management, I think every single one of us needs to know what we can do and what we can't do, and to be aware of what support we need to do our jobs to the best of our ability. With everyone, there's a proactive part that every individual can play, and there's also the supportive part that every organisation can play. So what can we as individuals ourselves identify of how do we best meet our needs to bring out the best of us in the work that we do? And how can my organisation help me with the training that I need so I know I can do my job to the best of my ability with the resources that I've got, with the skills and the experience, and have I got the skills to equip me with that?
Capability development in a regulatory organisation is critical on an ongoing basis. We live in a dynamic world We regulate things that change and move very, very fast. So ongoing knowledge gathering is very important for everybody. A great way to do that is to engage in the Government Regulatory Practice Initiative, not only in terms of core knowledge through the qualifications, but through the rich engagement you can have with peers who are working on many different things, sometimes at a fast pace, and that can keep you current and actually makes the job really exciting.
Being authentic to yourself as well as being professional is a key part of a job when it comes to the business of government and regulation and decision making. That's because people bring their own personal experience and life skills and relationship skills to the professional context.
Regulatory activity is based in engagement with the people whose behaviour you're trying to influence. That's much more possible if you bring your empathetic self to the task, standing in the shoes of the people you're regulating, understanding the impacts of what, after all, we're requiring them to do based on the coercive power of the state, and working out if there's a way to do that that enables them to get on with their legitimate business, achieve their goals, but also achieve the purpose of the regulatory system, whether that's safety or economic benefit or whatever.
I'm a strong believer that people should bring their authentic selves to work every day. That is the only way that you can actually come to work and operate at your best. And when it comes to tough decisions that we have to make, I believe all of us have got our own personal life experiences that are actually invaluable in helping us to make those decisions that we need to make as a regulator. The other point that I would add is that by being our true selves, we can be honest and we can be transparent with the people that we work with, and we can talk to them really frankly about how we might feel about a tough decision, which means that we have that supportive environment around us that allows us to make that tough decision in a much more effective manner than we would otherwise.
The moment that you stop apologising for yourself and start being, saying, acting and expressing how you feel in the workplace is the moment you start to realise that actually your unique self brings so much to your mahi. Diversity isn't just a necessity, it's actually also an incredible strength. When we're making decisions that impact all of Aotearoa New Zealand, we need to ensure we have voices at the table that reflect all of Aotearoa New Zealand.
We don't just make decisions based on the facts presented. There's the backstory, the context, the person behind the decision. We call on memories we don't even know from our childhood, our experiences, our skills gained, knowledge acquired, scars that we bear from hurts that we may have had, or trophies from wins. These all contribute to those decisions. And when we become conscious of all these things that actually contribute to our decision making, I believe that's where the beauty in diversity lies. And that's when ideas flow and where the magic really happens. And in terms of that statement that said it's okay to be authentic, I actually challenge that. I actually believe that it's absolutely imperative to be authentic, not just okay. And I only fully realized that in the aftermath of the 15th of March Christchurch terror attack. And I realized through my sharing that I had a role to play in breaking down the stereotypes and people understanding my lived experience. Not only did I realize that people appreciated my sharing, but they actually needed it for their decision making. We've got policymakers, customer service folk, lawyers, regulators making decisions, facilities, people and culture people, all making decisions and putting practices in place which affect myriads of New Zealanders on a daily basis. These people needed to know what I knew from my lived experience.
What is an empowered regulator? It's a very good question to ask, and I think empowerment comes from when every single individual in a system can feel like they belong to that system, that they are recognised, that their contribution is of value. And for each and every one of us, not just to respect the differences that we have, but to actually honour those differences as strengths. And a lot of that is to do with how do we best connect as human beings in the systems that we're working in to actually appreciate and demonstrate and use the diverse skills that we have, the diverse people that we have, and actually enable, not just allow, but enable everyone to play a part
Regulators are often asked to be agile, flexible, customer-centric, and yet enforce the rules at the same time. Added to that, they're asked to be occasionally entrepreneurial. It can be a challenge, and having some organisational values to anchor to can often help.
As a regulator, you're going to be working in an organisation which will have its corporate statements and its purpose statements. But one of the critical things is actually the values and the decision-making processes that you use as a regulator. They can sometimes feel like a straitjacket, but the real essence of being a good regulator is to apply a bit of an entrepreneurialism to that, to think a little bit outside the box, and balance those very, very difficult things of achieving the purpose of the regulatory system and allowing the regulated parties also to do their innovative activities and achieve the purposes that they want.
And finally, being an empathetic regulator in an empathetic agency makes for being an empowered regulator.
As a regulator, you're going to be engaging with colleagues, with the people that you're regulating, and with the people that are benefiting from that regulation. It's really, really important to show empathy across all of those parties. You've got to look after yourself. You've got to understand how you're feeling. You've got to understand what the impact is on the people that are regulated and the impact on the people that are benefiting from the regulation. And try and bring that into your decision making. Bring your whole self, bring all of that to the bear and make a good, sound regulatory decision.
Those working in regulatory agencies have a huge influence, more than they realise, on how they can choose to spend their time, energy, resources on what can make the most impact. And it's all very well having wonderful strategies or values or cultural frameworks in our organisations. It's quite another thing walking the talk with those things, and some of the bravest, most courageous agencies I see are actually putting in the hard yards of making sure that these things that their intent and their culture believes in are being put into action every single day through the role modelling of their leaders, through the integration of culture and practices within their agencies, through the way that they have conversations with each other as staff. It's all very well writing things down or having it in a framework. It's quite another thing to speak the action and actually to walk it.
And with that, we leave you. Stay safe, stay well, and be kind to yourself. Ka kite anō.